The last signal. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of Deep Space Monitoring Station Epsilon 7, watching the eternal dance of stars against the void. The station, positioned at the edge of human space, was considered a backwater posting by most of the United Earth fleet. But Sarah had specifically requested this assignment, drawn by the mystery of what lay beyond the frontier. The holographic displays behind her cast a soft blue glow across the observation deck, their steady stream of data providing a comforting backdrop to her thoughts. Most of the information was routine: stellar drift patterns, radiation levels, the occasional passing comet. Nothing that would interest the more established species of the Galactic Council. Commander called Lieutenant Rivera from his monitoring station, his voice carrying an unusual edge. "You need to see this." Sarah turned from the viewport, noting the concern in her communications officer's expression. Rivera's fingers danced across his haptic interface, bringing up a new holographic display in the center of the deck. "We're picking up something on the quantum bands," he explained, manipulating the display to show a complex waveform. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Sarah studied the pattern, her cybernetic eye implant automatically beginning to analyze the unusual signal. The quantum bands were typically reserved for emergency communications, their unique properties allowing for instant transmission across vast distances. But this signal was different, fragmented, desperate, almost organic in its complexity. "Source?" she asked, already moving to the main console. "The Vega sector," Rivera replied, his voice dropping. "Specifically from the Nexus civilization." Sarah's hands froze over the console. The Nexus, a species known for their mastery of quantum mechanics and their recent devastating civil war. The Galactic Council had declared their sector a quarantine zone months ago, citing irreversible quantum contamination from their weapons technology. "They're supposed to be dead," Sarah muttered, more to herself than to Rivera. The Council's reports said the quantum cascade had wiped them out completely. "Well, someone's still alive out there," Rivera said, adjusting the signal's resolution. "And they're asking for help." Sarah initiated a deep scan of the transmission, her implant processing the data streams faster than any natural human could. The signal contained more than just a distress call. It held fragments of scientific data, cultural archives, pieces of a civilization fighting to preserve itself. "Have you notified Council Control?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Rivera shook his head. "No, Commander. Given the quarantine protocols." He left the sentence unfinished, but the implication was clear. By Council law, they were required to ignore any signals from contaminated zones, no matter their nature. Sarah's jaw tightened. She'd spent her career studying the quantum sciences, trying to understand the fundamental forces that bound the universe together. The Council's leading species, the Arxer, the Meridians, even the ancient Skettle, claimed to have mastered these forces centuries ago. They viewed humanity as primitive, barely worth acknowledging in galactic affairs. But Sarah had always suspected there was more to quantum mechanics than the Council's rigid models allowed for. The universe was stranger, more alive than their mathematical frameworks suggested. And now, a signal from a supposedly dead civilization might prove her right. "Send a response," she ordered, her decision made. Rivera's eyes widened. "Commander, that would be a direct violation of." "I know exactly what it would be, Lieutenant," Sarah interrupted, her voice firm but not unkind. "Send it anyway, on my authority." As Rivera began composing the response, Sarah returned to the viewport. The stars seemed different now, their light carrying new meaning. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was fighting for survival, reaching out across the quantum void in desperation. The Council had written them off, deemed their fate a necessary sacrifice for galactic stability. But humanity had never been good at accepting such cold calculations, never comfortable with watching others suffer when there might be a chance to help. "Message ready, Commander," Rivera reported. Sarah nodded, still gazing at the stars. "Send it. And Lieutenant, Delete this conversation from the station's logs. What we're about to do, well, let's just say the Council wouldn't approve. The quantum transmission fired, invisible but powerful, carrying humanity's response across the light years. Sarah knew she had just crossed a line, one that could end her career or worse. But as she watched the signal strength indicators pulse with life, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Because sometimes the most important discoveries began with a simple choice: to listen when others turned away, to reach out when others withdrew, to hope when others had given up. It was a very human choice, one that would have consequences far beyond anything Sarah Chen could imagine. Against protocol. The response came 3 hours later, materializing in the quantum receiver like a ghost in the machine. Sarah Chen watched as the station's computers struggled to decode the transmission, the complex quantum patterns nearly overwhelming their processing capacity. Lieutenant Rivera had been joined by Dr. Maya Patel, the station's quantum physics specialist, both of them working frantically to stabilize the incoming data. "This is extraordinary," Maya breathed, her augmented reality interface displaying layers of quantum information that only she could see. The Nexus aren't just surviving. They're existing in a state of quantum flux. Their entire civilization has adapted to survive within the cascade itself. Sarah leaned forward, studying the decoded fragments. "Can you explain that in terms the Council would understand?" Maya's fingers traced patterns in the air, manipulating invisible data streams. They've essentially become quantum Schrödinger entities, simultaneously existing and not existing. It's why the Council's sensors showed them as dead. They're operating on a level of reality our standard detection methods can't perceive. "But they're dying," Rivera added softly, highlighting a particular data stream. "The quantum flux is unstable. Without intervention, they'll collapse into true quantum death within weeks." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Nexus had found a way to survive the unsurvivable, to adapt to conditions that should have destroyed them instantly. And now they were reaching out to humanity, not to the advanced Council races, but to the supposedly primitive humans, for help. "Commander," a new voice called from the doorway. Dr. James Harrison, the station's chief engineer, entered with a serious expression. "We've got company. Council observation vessel just dropped out of FTL at the edge of our sensor range." Sarah's cybernetic eye automatically calculated the implications. The Council wasn't supposed to have patrols in this sector. Their arrival now, so soon after the quantum transmission, couldn't be a coincidence. "They know," she stated simply. "Someone in the Council detected our response to the Nexus." Maya looked up from her data streams, fear mixing with determination in her expression. "What do we do?" Sarah straightened, her decision already made. "James, how quickly can you get the quantum lab ready for a full-scale experiment?" The engineer blinked in surprise. "The lab? It's not designed for anything beyond basic research. What are you planning?" "The Nexus sent us more than just a distress call," Sarah explained, moving to the main console. "They sent us their research, everything they learned about quantum mechanics during their civil war, including how they achieved their current state." Understanding dawned on Maya's face. "You want to replicate their quantum flux technology here, in our station." "Not replicate," Sarah corrected. "Improve upon it. The Council thinks they understand quantum mechanics, but they're trapped in their own rigid frameworks. The Nexus found another way, and now they're sharing it with us. But we have to act fast." James ran a hand through his gray hair, already calculating. The power requirements would be enormous. We'd have to reroute everything, run dark except for basic life support. "Do it," Sarah ordered. "Maya, start analyzing that research data. Find out exactly how the Nexus did this. Rivera, maintain contact with them, but keep it subtle. Use bursts of quantum noise that look like background radiation." "And the Council ship?" James asked. Sarah's expression hardened. "They'll demand to inspect the station. Standard quarantine protocols. We'll let them, but they won't find anything, because by then, Our little experiment will look like a completely natural quantum phenomenon." The team dispersed, each member moving with purpose. Sarah returned to her viewport, watching as the distant council vessel grew slowly larger. They had perhaps 12 hours before it arrived. 12 hours to attempt something that the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had deemed impossible. But that was the thing about humanity that the Council had never understood. Humans didn't accept impossibility as a final answer. They saw it as a challenge, a problem waiting to be solved. And when faced with the choice between following safe, established protocols and helping others in need, they would choose to help every time. In the quantum lab, equipment began to power up. Maya's voice carried over the comm system, directing the initial preparations. James and his engineering team started rerouting power systems, while Rivera maintained their subtle communication with the desperate Nexus civilization. Sarah touched the cool transparency of the viewport, her reflection overlaying the distant stars. What they were attempting was more than just a rescue mission. It was a fundamental challenge to the Council's understanding of the universe itself. If they succeeded, it would change everything. And if they failed, well, that wasn't really an option worth considering. The Council vessel grew larger in the display, its crystalline structure reflecting starlight like a faceted jewel. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Nexus, but potentially humanity's place in the galactic community. They were about to show the Council that sometimes the most profound discoveries come not from following established rules, but from having the courage to break them. The impossible solution. The quantum lab hummed with energy as Maya Patel manipulated streams of probability in ways that would have horrified her former professors. Nexus equations scrolled across her augmented reality display, each one challenging fundamental assumptions about how reality worked. Behind her, James Harrison's engineering team had transformed the lab into something that looked more like an art installation than a scientific facility. "The Council ship will dock in 3 hours," Sarah announced, entering the lab. Her cybernetic eye automatically adjusted to the strange quantum distortions now filling the room. "How close are we?" Maya gestured at the central apparatus, where streams of quantum particles danced in impossible patterns. "The Nexus research it's beyond revolutionary. They didn't just discover new laws of physics, they found ways to locally rewrite them." Explaining why the Council wanted them gone, James added grimly, "Adjusting power flows through crystalline structures that shouldn't have been able to exist. Can't have anyone challenging the established order of the universe." Sarah studied the quantum streams, her implant processing the data faster than any natural human could. "But can we help them?" "Maybe." Maya manipulated the particle flows, creating patterns that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Nexus found a way to exist in quantum superposition, their entire civilization occupying multiple states of reality at once. But the energy cost is enormous. That's why they're failing. "And we're going to stabilize them?" Sarah asked, already knowing the answer would be complicated. Maya's expression was both excited and terrified. "No. We're going to give them something better. Look at this." She brought up a new simulation, showing quantum patterns that made Sarah's cybernetic eye glitch. "The Council thinks quantum mechanics is about rigid rules and mathematical certainty, but the Nexus discovered something else. Quantum systems can learn, adapt, even evolve. We're not just going to stabilize their current state. We're going to help them transform into something new. Something the Council won't be able to detect or control," James added, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Rivera's voice came over the comm system, tense but controlled. "Commander, the Council vessel is requesting early docking. They say they've detected unusual quantum signatures from our station." Sarah's mind raced through options. "James, how long until the transformation matrix is ready?" "An hour, minimum," he replied. "And that's assuming everything works perfectly." "Maya." The quantum physicist didn't look up from her calculations. "The basic framework is ready, but we need time to test it. If we get this wrong, We could collapse the Nexus's quantum state entirely. Sarah made her decision. Rivera, tell them our docking systems are undergoing routine maintenance. Delay them as long as you can. She turned to her team. We've got 1 hour. Make it count. The next 60 minutes passed in a blur of quantum manipulation and engineering improvisation. Maya's fingers danced through probability streams, weaving together patterns that defied conventional physics. James and his team pushed the station's systems far beyond their design limits, channeling power in ways that would have given safety inspectors nightmares. Sarah moved between them, coordinating, encouraging, making split-second decisions that could mean the difference between success and catastrophic failure. Her cybernetic eye recorded everything, documenting what could be humanity's greatest scientific achievement, or its most spectacular disaster. Council ship is insisting on emergency docking procedures, Rivera reported, his voice tight. They're citing quarantine protocols. We've got maybe 15 minutes. Maya, almost there, she replied, sweat beading on her forehead as she manipulated quantum probabilities that shouldn't have been possible. The transformation matrix is stable. We just need to establish the final quantum link with the Nexus. James looked up from his engineering console, his expression grim. Power systems are at 150% of maximum safe levels. We can maintain this for maybe 20 minutes before something critical fails. Sarah watched the quantum streams pulse and swirl, carrying patterns that could rewrite their understanding of reality itself. The Council ship loomed closer in her peripheral vision, its crystalline structure now clearly visible through the station's external cameras. Send the signal, she ordered. Maya initiated the quantum transmission, sending humanity's response to the Nexus's desperate plea. The lab's equipment hummed at frequencies that made Sarah's teeth ache, as power levels climbed beyond anything the station had been designed to handle. Quantum link established, Maya announced, her voice filled with wonder. They're responding. The transformation is beginning. Through her cybernetic eye, Sarah watched as reality itself seemed to ripple. The quantum streams connecting their station to the distant Nexus civilization began to pulse with new patterns, new possibilities. They weren't just sending help. They were witnessing the birth of something entirely new. Council ship is initiating emergency override of our docking systems, Rivera reported. 3 minutes to forced entry. Sarah smiled, watching the quantum transformation unfold. Let them come, she said softly. They're about to learn that the universe is far more interesting than their rules suggest. The lab hummed with power, possibility, and promise, as humanity prepared to show the galaxy that sometimes the most profound discoveries come not from following established truths, but from daring to imagine new ones. Breaking point. The Council delegation materialized in Station Epsilon 7's main airlock in a shimmer of transported atoms. Their crystalline environmental suits caught the emergency lighting, casting fractured rainbow patterns across the walls. Sarah Chen stood waiting for them, her stance relaxed but alert, while behind her, the station thrummed with barely contained power. The lead council inspector, a towering Arxer named Val Sen, stepped forward. Its crystalline form shifted in patterns that Sarah's cybernetic eye interpreted as extreme agitation. Commander Chen, it said, its translator rendering its harmonic speech into flat English, your station is in violation of multiple quarantine protocols. Our sensors detect quantum signatures consistent with prohibited Nexus technology. Sarah met its gaze steadily. Your sensors detect a natural quantum phenomenon we've been studying. We are a research station, after all. A research station that responded to a transmission from a quarantine sector, Val Sen countered. The other council representatives moved to flank it, their own crystalline forms pulsing with what might have been anticipation. In the quantum lab, Maya and James worked frantically to complete the transformation protocol. Sarah could see their progress through her cybernetic feed. The quantum link with the Nexus was growing stronger, more complex, evolving in ways that even Maya's equations hadn't predicted. We're going to inspect your facilities, Val Sen announced, not waiting for permission. Any resistance will be treated as confirmation of prohibited activities. Sarah smiled slightly. Of course, we have nothing to hide. The lie came easily because, in a way, it wasn't really a lie at all. What they were doing went so far beyond the Council's understanding that they literally wouldn't be able to see it. She led the delegation through the station's corridors, every second buying more time for her team. Through her quantum-linked feed, she could see the transformation progressing. The Nexus weren't just being saved, they were becoming something else, something that existed in dimensions the Council couldn't perceive. Your power readings are excessive, one of the other inspectors noted, its crystalline form shifting in patterns of suspicion. Necessary for our current research, Sarah replied smoothly. We're studying quantum fluctuations in nearby star systems. The power requirements are substantial. They reached the quantum lab just as Maya sent an urgent signal through Sarah's feed. It's happening. The transformation is accelerating beyond our predictions. We can't stop it now even if we wanted to. The lab doors slid open, revealing a scene that made the Council delegates freeze in their tracks. Quantum streams danced through the air in impossible patterns, while reality itself seemed to bend and flex around the central apparatus. Maya stood at her control station, her hands moving through probability streams that shouldn't have existed, while James and his team worked to keep the power flowing. This is impossible, Val Sen declared, its translator unable to fully convey its shock. These quantum configurations violate fundamental laws of physics. No, Sarah corrected, watching as the transformation reached its critical point. They violate your understanding of those laws. There's a difference. Through the quantum link, she could feel the Nexus changing, evolving into something beyond normal space-time. The Council's sensors would show their civilization vanishing completely, not dying, but transcending into a state of existence that the Council's rigid models couldn't comprehend. This station is hereby seized, Val Sen announced, its crystalline form pulsing with authority. All personnel will be detained for questioning. All research data will be. It never finished the sentence. At that moment, the quantum transformation reached completion, and reality rippled. To Sarah's cybernetic eye, it looked like a wave of possibility washing through normal space. The Council delegates staggered, their crystalline forms resonating with frequencies they weren't designed to handle. When the wave passed, the quantum streams had changed. They now flowed in patterns that seemed to ignore normal physics, creating structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Through these new patterns, Sarah could sense the Nexus. Not dead, not merely surviving, but transformed into something wonderful and new. What have you done? Val Sen demanded, but its voice held more awe than anger. Sarah looked at the quantum streams, now pulsing with life and possibility. We helped someone who asked for help, she said simply. It's what humans do. Maya's voice came through the quantum feed, filled with wonder. Commander, the Nexus, they're reaching out. They want to share what they've become, what we helped them become. The Council delegates watched in stunned silence as new quantum patterns began to form, carrying information and insights that would transform their understanding of reality itself. Their rigid models of physics, their carefully maintained hierarchies of knowledge and power, were about to change forever. And it had happened not through their advanced technology or ancient wisdom, but because a small team of humans had chosen to listen when others turned away, to help when others withdrew, to imagine new possibilities when others clung to old certainties. Sarah smiled, watching the future unfold in streams of quantum probability. Sometimes the greatest discoveries came not from following rules, but from having the courage to break them in service of something greater than yourself. Legacy. 3 months after the events at Station Epsilon 7, Sarah Chen stood before the full Galactic Council in their Grand Assembly Chamber on Capital World. The crystalline architecture soared above her, designed to inspire awe in visitors. But Sarah had seen things far more awe-inspiring in the quantum streams of possibility. The council chamber was packed, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered to witness something unprecedented. Val Sen, the inspector who had once threatened to shut down her station, now sat among the High Council members, its crystalline form still showing traces of the quantum patterns it had witnessed. "We have reviewed the evidence from Station Epsilon 7, the High Speaker announced, its multifaceted form catching the light. "The implications are significant." Sarah waited patiently. Through her cybernetic eye, she could see the quantum streams that now flowed through the galaxy, invisible to most but carrying messages and possibilities that the Council was only beginning to understand. The Nexus civilization hadn't died. They had evolved, transcended, becoming something that existed between the moments of normal spacetime. "Your actions violated numerous Council protocols," the High Speaker continued. "By all our previous standards, you should be facing severe sanctions." It paused, its crystalline structure shifting in what Sarah had learned to recognize as uncertainty. "However, the results of your intervention cannot be ignored." The quantum streams pulsed slightly, and Sarah smiled. The Nexus were watching, as they always were now. Their transformation hadn't just saved them. It had given them a perspective on reality that even the most advanced Council races were struggling to comprehend. "The Nexus have shared insights that challenge our most fundamental understanding of physics," another Council member added. "Their new state of existence suggests possibilities we had never considered. And they credit humanity with making this possible," Val Sen said, its voice carrying a note of wonder. "Not through advanced technology or ancient wisdom, but through something else entirely. The willingness to help," Sarah said simply. "The ability to look beyond established rules, when those rules no longer serve life and discovery." She gestured to the quantum streams that only she and a few others could see. "The Nexus reached out to us because they recognized something in humanity that the Council had overlooked. We don't just accept the universe as it is, we imagine what it could be." The chamber filled with murmurs as her words were translated across dozens of different communication systems. The quantum streams rippled with patterns that Sarah's cybernetic eye interpreted as amusement. The Nexus, it seemed, appreciated the irony of the moment. "The Council has made a decision," the High Speaker announced. "Humanity will be granted full research privileges in quantum mechanics and related fields. Additionally, we are creating a new division within the Council specifically to explore the implications of the Nexus transformation. Commander Chen, we request that you lead this initiative." Sarah felt Maya's excitement through their quantum link. Back at Epsilon 7, her friend was already working on new theories that combined human intuition with Nexus insights. James and his engineering team were developing technologies that worked with the quantum streams rather than trying to control them. And Rivera was learning to communicate directly through the quantum patterns, discovering that there were many more civilizations out there, waiting to be heard if only someone would listen. "I accept," Sarah said, "on one condition." She waited until she had the Council's full attention. "This research must be open to all civilizations, regardless of their technological level or political status. What we've learned from the Nexus isn't just about physics. It's about the importance of looking beyond our assumptions about who is advanced enough to contribute." The Council chamber erupted in discussion, but Sarah could see in the quantum streams that the decision was already made. The Nexus's transformation had shown them that the universe was far more complex, far more alive with possibility, than their rigid hierarchies had allowed for. As she left the chamber, Sarah's cybernetic eye caught a complex pattern in the quantum streams, a message from the Nexus, translated through the new understanding they shared. "Thank you," it said simply, "for showing us that the impossible is just the beginning." Sarah smiled, watching the quantum streams dance with potential. Humanity had given the galaxy more than just a scientific breakthrough. They had demonstrated that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from power or protocol, but from simple compassion and the courage to imagine something new. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for someone to look at it with fresh eyes. And humanity, for all its supposed primitiveness, had seen something that the most advanced civilizations had missed. That in the end, the greatest force in the universe isn't technology or knowledge, but the simple willingness to help others achieve their full potential. In the quantum streams that now connected the galaxy in ways the Council was only beginning to understand, countless civilizations were reaching out, sharing ideas, discovering that the universe was far more wonderful and strange than anyone had imagined. And it had all started because a small team of humans had chosen to listen when others turned away. Sarah's cybernetic eye recorded one final quantum pattern as she left, a ripple of possibility that seemed to hold the promise of endless discovery. The future was no longer about following established paths. It was about creating new ones together.